what happened to me was that I had finished the first draft of this novel in September '89, and one day woke up to find my whole setting destroyed by Hurricane Hugo. The book takes place on the Isle of Palms, Barrier Islands outside Charleston, and the community of the Isle of Palms had been more or less leveled by this killer storm. And I suppose I could have left the book as it was, but it didn't make sense to me to go ahead with the book set in a place that really, at that point, it seemed to me no longer existed. So I took a year rewriting the book, resetting it in a post-hurricane Isle of Palms, and it actually, if there was any good to me from Hurricane Hugo, it was a sort of gift that it gave to the book, because what I had before was a story about a man who suddenly decides to reevaluate and change his life for rather vague reasons. And the hurricane gives him a very specific occasion to do this, and makes that suggestion to him. Writing these golf scenes, I mean, golf is a sort of minor theme in this book. Well, I like, there's something about the golf course that's magical and appealing. It's this smooth green oasis of a place. So I've always sort of been attracted to that image. But at the same time, the game represents to Rob anyway the kind of life that he's been leading and wants to get out of. So there was a sort of dual purpose in choosing golf as a thing, and obviously it's an artificial naturalness that we've come to now. Good, that's a wonderful image. Not on that course. He has to change course. In all three of my novels, there is a sort of secondary cast of black characters that actually, as I look back on the novels, those characters appeal to me more and are far more interesting than the main characters in the stories. And Albert is one of those characters. I'm sure other writers feel this way too. You have minor characters who you hate to keep in the background like that. They're interesting and fascinating in themselves, and you hope one day maybe they will step forward and have a whole book. I think the idea of serving the public is part of what he sees as the allure of the hero image. He would like to be heroic. The volunteer fire department is the only thing that he can actually think of as a path towards heroism. And actually, there's nothing wrong with that as a path towards heroism, but it's not exactly what. It's not quite as noble and grand, anyway. The Fireman's Fair is an actual event in the book, a community event that is a sort of traditional community celebration, and serves me in the book as a sort of final gathering. And yet, the phrase itself, for me, took on much more significance than just the event, maybe because it sort of rang a bell. It reminded me of Vanity Fair. So that the human celebration, the community event, comes to stand for these kinds of things where people get together and you can sense that there's something more to life than just our single stories. There is a community common purpose that we have here. And besides, I love those. I love little town fairs, county fairs, and bazaars. And I don't think of it as midlife crisis. I actually don't like that term, I guess. I think that our lives are full of these times when we can choose a different course, when we can change what we've been or seek something else. Between the two men? You know, it's almost impossible to answer that question. The true answer is that I sat there and overheard those two fictional characters talking. I mean, that's how it appears to me when I write a scene or write dialogue, that I'm just listening. Of course, that's not true. There's no one talking, and it's coming out of my head. And I guess if I had to track down where I got the notion of how a young man might talk to his father, it would have to be from actual eavesdropping over the years, or from reading, or from movies. All of these things are where we get our notions. And since I'm neither a young man nor an old man, it can't come from my own experience. But I was saying yesterday over at the Southern Festival of Books that I don't think that the differences between men and women are so great that we can't possibly imagine the experience of the other gender. With the Senate hearings right now, we are on occasion being told that we cannot possibly imagine what the other gender thinks, right? And of course, I don't know the true answer to anything, but in this case, I think that we can see through the barriers and understand what another human being's vision of the world or understanding of something might be. I think he did and did not. I mean, he is a romantic, and he likes the idea of buying the ring and giving it to this girl. And yet he's also not really a fully grown-up person. He still has sort of, he's not quite ready for that, or at least in his mind he's not. So ambivalence is exactly the right word. He doesn't know. I mean, when people get engaged, I'm sure some people are absolutely certain it's the right thing to do, but I remember reading in my sophomore psychology class at Duke that the reason that we have big elaborate weddings with lots of advanced preparation is that it sort of locks people into that wedding. You get engaged, and then your mother buys her dress and the invitations go out, and it becomes difficult for you to back out. There's a reason for that, and that is that people naturally get scared. It's a big step. So I don't think it's odd that he's hesitant to make that commitment. I think many people would be. I don't think of him as being a unique kind of man. A kind of man, yes. I don't think all men are like Rob Wyatt. Well, I'll tell you what I think I learned from him, aside from the fact that all of us who were in his class loved him. I think that he taught us to look at life as if it were a mystery, and that writing is the thing you do in order to get at some of those mysteries, not to understand them, because that may not be possible, but to try to understand and just look. And I remember him also saying that he wrote fiction often as that he thought of his stories and his novels as mirrors, and as also as gifts. He would have specific people in mind that he wrote stories for. So the notion of a novel as a gift, as something you write for someone else, is a very interesting thing. I often think that your writing style is something that is like your fingerprint, that you can't do much to change it. I mean, obviously you can try to alter it in some ways, but I think it's it's not a technique that you learn. It's more a reflection of the way your particular brain puts words together, and how language filters through your imagination and reaches the page. So, and the lucky writers are the ones who have their own style and and find it easy to tap into. A lot of times people have to spend a good bit of time finding out what their own style is. When I started writing, when I started seriously writing, because I had spent so much time in graduate school and I had learned the critical essay style, and it wasn't any good for fiction. Well, maybe writers need mentors because there simply are not very many writers. I mean, I grew up in a town where I didn't know any writers. I don't think there were any writers. You know, if you look around and you see what people do, maybe you could be a doctor, maybe you could be a lawyer, maybe you could sell real estate. Those were about the only 3 jobs that existed in Charleston when I was growing up. So when you first meet your first flesh and blood real writer, it's a rare occurrence. You're lucky to have met one, and it's exciting. And if you have sort of secretly thought about doing it yourself, it's very encouraging to meet somebody who does it. And then if that person tells you that you're pretty good at it, he doesn't want the one that's there to know what the conversation is. Rob is a man whose long dream comes true. The dream of winning Louise, who has been the love of his life, he says. But actually, he has been fairly comfortable in this long habit they've had of playing golf and talking, and of Rob not having any real responsibility towards her. And he jokes with her about their great love. When she finally does make up her mind that she does love him, that she does want to be with him, it scares him to death. And it is finally something that he realizes that he no longer wants. Well, one of the things that has interested me in fiction, I write mostly about families, and I've been very interested in long-term relationships between parents and children, between husbands and wives, between friends. I think that when we think of marriage or parenthood, we envision a small framework, and we see a certain thing, and we see it as static. And I'm more interested in seeing what happens over a period of many years, and how those relationships change, and how they're never static. Really, even from day to day, they change. And to me, that's what makes a novel, is taking a look at one of those, or several of those relationships. And they always surprise me. I'll be writing about a long marriage that I think is going to break up. In my first book, Dreams of Sleep, that's what I was looking at, and to my surprise, those people come back together. That's a metaphor that writers love, and before I was writing, when I heard people say that, it made me angry, because it's clearly so untrue, and it seemed unfair of writers. But the fact is that that's exactly what it feels like when you're writing, and I found that out. And I think the reason is that we write from the subconscious, the same place that we dream from. So to us, it does seem that way. It does seem that the characters are under their own power and controlling their own lives. And if it doesn't feel that way to the writer, then something may be wrong. And I think that's how it should feel. Yes, well, I've been sidetracked a little bit, but I have started another novel. But my second novel being filmed now, so I want to go over to the movie set. The father in the family is being played by Albert Finney, the mother by Jill Clayburgh, and the other woman by Piper Laurie. Sure. But from what I've seen of the filming so far, I think I must be the luckiest novelist to ever have a movie made from a novel. The director is a plain genius. It's Bruce Beresford, an Australian director who directed Driving Miss Daisy.